Mark Johnson's number is 919-807-3430. His office is no longer taking calls from me, which I discovered when I kept calling today and no one answered. I called at 9, I called at 11:06, I called at 12:32, I called at 2. So finally, about 10 minutes ago, I dialed star 67. Yes. I don't care if none of y'all are out there. Maybe you'll pop up later today. Probably all taking a nap or working. Meanwhile, I'm just still in my pajamas with a fleece because I'm too lazy to get dressed. Hi, Amanda. So when I dial star 67, oh, look, they answer. Did y'all know star 67 still works on cell phones? I mean, that was like the oldest trick in the book in college, right? When you want to call a boy and don't want him to know you're calling in case he's not there. I know. Amanda, you should be envious. Rebecca and I are just sitting around in our pajamas. No, I actually have on real clothes because I did take Amos to school this morning. And I tell you what we're going to talk about. Hey, Nicole, we are going to talk about school safety. And this is an area that I know nothing about, though I do now, but I didn't before. So when I thought about school safety, and I think I'm an expert to talk about this with y'all because I think I'm a normal, average mother in North Carolina or anywhere, pretty regular. When I think about school safety, I would think about how can people get in my kid's school? What if a shooter shows up, right? So it's bullying and mental health and lots of stuff. But school shooters are something I think we're all particularly aware of and we don't want to see get our schools. So we're talking about the school shooter aspect of safety. Now, in our county, the superintendent, they put up a fence around the high school to cut through traffic and make sure they know who's coming in the school. It's great. Everybody needs to do that. In all 3 of my children's schools now, you have to talk into a video so the door unlocks for you. That didn't happen until later this summer. Thrilled to see it. Great. That's where we start. So there's a Center for School Safety. I'm going to try to really explain this, and sorry if it goes on too long. I have until the bus stop. But that way, if you want to share this with people, you can. Whatever. I don't care. But I just want to know that in my heart, I did everything to keep our kids safe. And that's really all I care about. I don't get paid to sit around and write this shit. No. So, Kim Martin is the director of the Center for Safer Schools. She was appointed to that position by Pat McCrory. Her husband is Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. Great. So she gets in that center and she sits. And she talks about doing an app and all sorts of stuff. Well, when Roy Cooper won, she was going to lose her job, right? Because when the new governor comes in, they let people go away. Oh, Betty Boyd's in Cortona, Italy. So what happened was the legislature, which is primarily Republican, and I'm a Republican, and I think it's really important to point out this is not political. It should not be, but it is currently political in our state. And we have people representing us that care more about politics than they do about your kids and my kids. And I don't like that. So, when the legislature knew Cooper was coming in December, they took 100 government-appointed spots and they moved them to agencies. Hey, Lori. So they were no longer, when the new governor came in, Cooper, I don't care if you like him or not, doesn't matter, he's a Democrat, who cares? He didn't have the ability to make those appointments. Fine. So Kim Martin and her whole agency, they get over to DPI, the Department of Public Instruction. So now she has an official job with the school system. I am not a Republican and I like Governor Cooper. Good. This doesn't have anything to do with anybody you like or don't like. This just has to do with our kids, or it should. So she's in under DPI. Now Kim comes over not quite a year ago. She has 6 people with her. So Kim, 6 people. As of today, 9 people have left her agency. And if you've been following along my articles, which I would encourage you to do, several of those people, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those people, have gone on the record and spoken about the lack of leadership, genuine worry and concern for what is going on in the agency and for what is not going on in the agency. And there are a few big things. One big thing is threat assessment. So threat assessment is not the vulnerability assessment. That's if your school is safe, like with the perimeters. Threat assessment is taking data from the FBI. So a woman named Amy James is a forensic psychologist and just happens to live in North Carolina. And she is the threat assessment trainer for the National Criminal Justice Center. She goes all around the country. She trained the director of training at the LAPD. She trained the SBI in Oregon. She's been to Tampa. She's been to Houston. She's been to Appleton, Wisconsin. She's the real deal, folks. So she gets appointed to the task force by a fellow named Chip Hughes. Now, Chip Hughes is a long-time law enforcement person. He was appointed by McCrory to the task force, running for sheriff in Newbern, North Carolina. He's awesome. So he brings her on because he has the ability to make appointments. And meanwhile, Kim Martin's over here. Well, Kim doesn't like anybody that knows more than she does. So rather than be a good leader who surrounds themselves with smart people, Kim doesn't want to hear what they have to say. So if Kim says, well, smoking pot is a mental health issue, Chip would say, teenagers smoking pot are juvenile delinquents. Okay? Right. Now, what they wanted to do, Chip and Amy, and then a really nice fellow named Dick Hayes. Now, Dick Hayes worked for 18 years on the governor's task force, and before that, he worked at the Center for Biotechnology as a researcher at Chapel Hill. He was Kim's very first hire. I spoke to him this morning. He was sitting at the airport going to Japan, and one day, he just walked down to HR and said, I'm ready to quit. And they said, well, we can help you do. Bob Steinberg is texting me about something that's going to piss me off. We can help you. You can take an early retirement. So what had happened with him was he's the researcher. So he would bring data to the table and say, boy, this is a real problem. So Kim maybe wanted to focus on suicide. And he would say, yes, we have suicide, but really we have this other problem. Well, she didn't want to hear about it. And so if there were some grants available, she would give the grants to people. He would say no, and somehow she would win and override him. So that's helpful. So she's really wants to do this app. I think it's like what she wants to leave as her legacy. So they called it like Speak Up North Carolina. And they piloted it in 42 schools I can't remember the number of counties, 6 counties. And over a few year period, they had 127 tips. That's not many tips. Not one of the tips qualifications recognized if someone was like a shooter potential. Most of the tips were bullying. I think that was 40%. 24% were drugs. 20% danger. I mean, important information. But anyway, so when it came time to report the data on the tips, they've been collecting these tips at the center. In a meeting, Dick tells me this. So this is Dick has allowed his name to be used, even though, I think this crowd at DPI is so awesome because they just decided that they're not going to play this game. They're going to be honest, and they actually really care about our kids. And so Kim says in the meeting, well, why don't we use the test tips? Now, those are tips that maybe Chip made or Dick made or Amy made or Donna made, who would register the tips. So the kids are supposed to make the tips, David, and then the tips are reported. Well, they made a bunch of pretend tips, the staff members of the center, just to make sure the app was working. Dozens. And Kim said, well, why don't we use the tips we made in our data so that we can show we really need this app? And Dick Hayes said, no, we can't do that. I mean, that's falsifying data. Well, she didn't like that idea. They didn't end up doing it, but Dick left. So when Dick leaves, Donna Doherty gets asked by Kim. She's in California, and she's drinking a beer on the beach, and Kim calls her and says, "Hey, Donna, it's Kim. We would have a position at the center." And she said, "I'm in California. I'll talk to you when I get back." So when she talked to her when she got back, she said, "Yes, I'll come." Donna stayed at the center for 10 months. Donna's big initiative was there are 16 things in North Carolina that schools have to report to law enforcement. Sexual assault, violent assault, kidnapping, things like that. Well, the 17th thing, Donna's idea, and Donna did lots of safety for Nash Edgecombe schools. That was her job. Donna said, we need to have communicating threats as an optional number 17 for schools to have to report to law enforcement. So for those of you who don't know, in Parkland, Amy told me, the problem was the tips had been made, people at the school knew, but they were not required to be passed on to law enforcement. And with these shooters, they all share very similar characteristics, and they can be accounted for and talked about. But we have to train our school systems, and that includes counselors and teachers, school board members, city, county law enforcement. Everybody needs to be together. Yes, Donna is amazing, Ashley. So that we know. So if a kindergartner on a playground says, well, I'm going to blow up the school bus, is that a real threat? Probably not. If the Parkland shooter said, which he did, I'm going to be the next school shooter, that would be noted as that's a real threat. When he posted a picture of himself with weapons, that's another clue. So they're taking these clues and realizing, boy, this is important. So then their school counselor can pull their grades, their behavior history. You would have law enforcement that would be able to pull any criminal record. You would have school board members that would know. You would have your attorney in the school would know. So it's a great big, really wonderful team experience. So Donna really wanted that to happen so we can make sure we knew that if a child communicated threats against a school, not a kindergartner, that it would be reported to law enforcement. Because how do we even know if there's a problem or when the problem is if it's not being communicated? Well, Kim didn't like that idea. So it didn't happen. And that's the deal with Kim. If Kim doesn't like the idea, it doesn't happen. So fast forward a year, they go to Asheville, and they're going to visit some schools. Now, the fellow that told me this, anyway, Dick said, we went to Asheville, and we visited a school for children that were mentally disturbed. I guess that's the way you say it, probably not right. And it was $80,000 a year, and there were like 8 kids there. And Dick said, Kim, this is great, but this is not financially feasible for the state. We have got to look at programs that help 100 kids at a time. This is a waste. Does Kim like any ideas? Kim likes ideas that evidently just blow in the wind and fall on her head. And I don't mean that like in a mean way. I don't have anything against Kim Martin, but I hope if Adrian Wood was up there that y'all would say, Adrian, you seem like a nice person, but you are not cut out for this job. You have no training, no education, and no experience in school safety. And you're putting our children at risk. Adrian, we love you. But please know, Adrian, you're not going to be an orthopedic surgeon this afternoon just because the governor says you are, right? Don't let me be an orthopedic surgeon. Don't. So, Kim Martin's position is moved from the operations head at DPI, a different group, to Mark Johnson. This keeps her safe. In July, the legislature gave Kim Martin $5 million for her app, the app that she wanted to use false data for the tips, but Dick Hayes wouldn't let her before he left. And so I went to a school safety meeting, most of y'all know, and at the meeting, as we were getting pizza for lunch, I said to Kim, there's a free app available. There are actually several, but the Sandy Hook organization, which is funded largely, obviously, after Newtown, Connecticut, has a free app. They have a command center. It's monitored 24 hours a day. So if students do tips, it's really important. Now, Kim is also over dropout prevention. Lord knows, who knows? I don't know anything about that. So Kim, oh shit, now you made me forget what I was talking about. what was I saying? I said, Kim, there's this free option. Miami-Dade is using it. I've spoken to the superintendent. They really like it. They put it in all their middle and high schools. Miami-Dade is like the size of North Carolina, basically. And she said to me, then what would we do with the $5 million? Now, I love my mother, and I really do. My mother, though, is not trying to run the Center for Safer Schools. This is someone that has no clue. And now I've called Mark Johnson 3 days in a row, and he won't call me back. And he's clearly instructed his office not to answer the phone when I call. Susan can't hear. I don't know why, Susan. You know, Mark Johnson's person that said I was leading a tribal rivalry said he's tried to meet with you. Well, I'm calling him now every day, and he won't call me back, which I understand has gotten worse in the last several years. Do you know if that's accurate? What's gotten worse? So anyway, so Donna has left, Donna Doherty. Dick Hayes has left. Then you have Chip Hughes over in New Bern has left. Teacher bonuses. Oh, God. We're not talking about that today, Kristen. I like teacher bonuses, but not for 3rd and 5th grade test scores. I think that undermines kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 4th grade teachers. I mean, it's just dumb. But anyway, I don't know if you agree or not, but I do. Donna leaves. Chip leaves. Amy Jones, the forensic psychologist, the preeminent forensic psychologist from North Carolina, leaves because Kim would not listen to any of them. And they said her staff would listen to us, but not her. Did y'all hear that? I called my superintendent, left him a message. Lord, he probably is hating that. But everyone seems to leave but Kim. Exactly. So the word on the street is she's untouchable. She will not be removed. It doesn't seem like no matter what she does, she will not be removed. 2 people did tell me that she used the word retarded to describe exceptional children in the spring meeting, and she was written up. But when she went to the meeting, she said, I don't have time for this with HR. So that's before they moved her over to Mark Johnson. Now there's a new guy, Joe Maimoni, and he's a charter school guy, which I ain't real into that. But anyway, I talked to him today, and he was nice. Lord knows he's not going to want me to say, but he didn't tell me anything. Lord, he was nervous as a cat when I called. So I said to him, Joe, I sent you some messages. He said, well, I can't comment on that. I was like, what? There's no comment. I'm just telling you I sent you some messages. And I said, I wanted you to know I've written some articles. Thank you, Kristen, for emailing your senators. And I've given Mark Johnson's number at the beginning of this thing. It's hard as hell to find these people's number. They don't want you calling. That's why. So start calling. And he said, well, I'm going to have to direct you to Drew Elliott. Well, Drew Elliott, he's head of communications. He's basically supposed to lynch me over the phone. I said, this isn't about Drew Elliott, Joe. I'm calling. He said, who are you with? I said, I'm with myself. I said, I'm a mom of 4 kids, because who knows what he's heard about me? I'm sure nothing good. I always say, if you're doing your job, you love Adrian. If you're not, you don't like me. So it's amazing how many people I really get along with. The few are the ones that know they're doing nothing good. But I think Joe is nice. I said, Joe, I'm a mother, 4 kids, a little boy with special needs, and I take him to school, and I trust his teacher and my principal and my school resource officer. I couldn't trust anybody more. But when I know that people are leaving an agency, when 100% staff turnover happens because the director will not do what experienced people want to do, I have to call you, because there's going to be a school shooter in North Carolina. At some point there will be. That's what all these experts tell me. It's only a matter of when. It's true. Maybe if we did a threat assessment, but there'll still be one. They just won't be successful. And if something happens to one of my kids or one of my friends' kids or any child in North Carolina, I want you to remember that I called you And I said to you, Joe, I told you this was going to happen because Kim Martin is in that position. And it's going to be on your heart at night to know that you have the power to do something. What the fuck? I mean, but you know what? It's true. You can do so many things. We can, Mark Johnson sent something dumb to somebody yesterday about, here's what I've done as superintendent with his picture. Stop it. Do something and quit telling people what you're doing. Don't send out copies that cost $0.25 to people in the state when they're living in a tent in Onslow County. I'll be damned. Golly. Anyway, our teachers and our school systems are doing the very best they can. And we have a Center for Safer Schools that is not doing jack shit. And I'm sick of it. I'm going to be at the school board meeting on November 1st. And I'm going to ask some questions. I've already submitted a few to the state board. That's what you have to do. If you care about kids in North Carolina, you will speak up against Kim Martin being the director. And if you don't, I want you to remember when something happens that you stayed quiet. You didn't want to get involved. It's political. It's not effing political. It is not. And I tell you what, for those of you who think, it's the Republicans or it's the Democrats, no. There's corrupt folks on both sides. I mean, just for example, so obviously in this case, it's easy to pinpoint the Republicans, right? Mark Martin's a Republican. He's the Chief Justice. Let's keep Kim in here. Mark Johnson has a clear political agenda that he wants to further. And so now he's thrown the safer school on Joe because he's trying to save himself, because he knows damn well, just like I do, that he's in trouble if something happens. And he's already in trouble. He's not getting reelected in 2020. If he gets reelected in 2020, I don't know what I'll do. Something bad. And this is my problem. My brain is fried. I had 2 Mountain Dews for lunch. Crap. I was on such a good roll. What was I saying? Y'all got to remind me of things. Oh, God. Anyway. Well, that's about all. Oh, it's not political. And so let's talk about Democrats for a minute. Oh, Democrats are great. Oh, I hate Democrats, whatever. Democrats, all this testing stuff, we do testing. You know who's Metametrics is the big tester in North Carolina? Mm-hmm. They give tons of money to Democrats. They love the Democrats, the testers, people that are on the board at UNC Hospital, testers. So let me just say to you, if you think you're safe in your party, you're not, because they're all screwing you for themselves. And I hate to be like a, conspiracy theorist. I don't believe, in, the Loch Ness Monster. Maybe I do. These people do not have your children in best interest. And if your children are in a charter school and you love it, I'm glad for you. But when I tell you that a for-profit charter school does not care about your kids, you need to understand that. Let's just say for a minute, Joe Snookums down the street wants to pay for Blair to go to school. College. Harvard. She wants to go to Harvard. So Blair goes to Harvard. Joe Snookums got the money for her to go to Harvard. Well, I love Harvard, right? Harvard is wonderful. Joe Snookums paying for it. This is wonderful. Well, Joe Snookums actually is a pedophile. Suddenly, all that wonderful stuff Joe Snookums doing for Blair is not so good, right? Because I have to consider the intent behind the action. And that really is what is impeding North Carolina. There's an election coming up in November. I'm very curious to see who's going to win. I sure as help anybody in New Bern, I would vote for Chip Hughes as sheriff. The other sheriff is very similar to these other people we're talking about. Not interested in school safety. He's interested in his own agenda, which is basically like being boss hog in Mississippi in 1950. So that's just an aside. You are choosing the future of your children. And if you look at what's happening in Michigan in terms of charter schools and for-profit charter schools, they have lost 60% of their kids to charter schools. School systems are going under. Well, you know what happens when the charter school decides they don't want to be there anymore? Guess what? It costs you a whole hell of a lot more to get schools up and running than it does to just keep the kids there to begin with. Anyway, y'all think this is crazy. It's not. This is really happening, and you can see it in other states. John Bryan from Oregon made a beeline on North Carolina in 2011. He went from getting more charter schools allowed to now we have an innovative school district, and to last night they announced who was on the list. One school in Goldsboro. And what that means is that charter schools are coming to Goldsboro. And I guarantee you, I'll bet y'all $100, that the AAC, the All Children Group, read by that Tony Hilton guy, I guarantee you he'll get the darn contract. He who has no experience, and it's the law that he has to have experience, but no, he got that South Pole Ash Elementary School. So anyway, you watch and see what happens when he gets that. So today, every teacher and every administrator at that school learned that they did not have a job last year in Goldsboro. That should worry you. It shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. You know, in the Innovative School District, Eric Hall, his person, said to me, it's not about teaching, it's about flexibility. Well, if it's not about teaching, then why are all these people losing their jobs? Now, they can apply for them next year. At the South, whatever, the school this year, two are back. No administrators. Southside Ashpole. Thank you, Karen. It's like killing me. I can't get all my stuff straight. Anyway, this matters. I don't know what to do either. I'm sending Bob Steinberg messages. I'm talking to the NNO. I'm trying to get people to, I think the NNO will pick it up. I mean, I have almost as many followers as the NNO, but I guess they're considered more legitimate since they're a real news source than me. But this matters. It really matters. And you need to ask your principals and your superintendent. Now, if you're in Chowan County, I'm on it, but I would appreciate your support. And why don't we hire Dr. Jones to come in 2 days for $2,000? She will come in and train 70 people on a threat assessment and leave. You can put it into your school system policy. And I really think that threat assessment would be, it will save lives. But no, Kim wants to work on this $5 million app. An app that's free through Sandy Hook, an app that Miami-Dade School District is using for free. And Kim wants to pay Zeteki, who's hired by Jarrett Burr, $5 million to build her an app that Zeteki told me was already completed, so it'd be free, and to build a North Carolina call center. Have you contacted school boards across the state? I am in contact with, I have a person on the North Carolina State Board of Education who is really, we're in contact and have a good relationship. You know, the more you talk and say things that matter, I mean, I had 2 people reach out to me today that said, I want to talk to you off the record. And you know, that's like, makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. These are people that have a lot to lose, but care enough that they want somebody to know. Yeah, Wanda Thompson said it's an inner city elementary. So basically that's what happens. Then the schools that get picked are poor and black. You don't see any schools in Chapel Hill getting picked, right? I wonder why. Maybe because their population is totally different than Eastern North Carolina. Anyway, that's about all I got. I want to throw all this heavy stuff on y'all. I'm not always so heavy, but I just don't know what else to do. I do not know what else to do. I don't have a radio show. I don't have a podcast. I just have this blog that I started 2.5 years ago because I had this little boy that I loved and I didn't know what I was going to do because he was so wonderful, yet I knew his journey was going to be different. And I was scared to death. And so I started sharing the what is rather than the what if. And along the way, somehow, education has fallen into it. And I'm doing the same thing with education that I do with Amos or my marriage or my shit show of a life. I'm just telling you the honest truth. I have nothing to gain and everything to lose. But joy. I have joy. And I have peace that I know that I'm doing the right thing. So I just think that's important. If you can go to the school board November 1st, I wish you would in Raleigh. If you can make a call to Mark Johnson, I wish you would. If you could ask your principal, call your superintendent, call your local rep, call your senator, send him a Facebook message, send him an email, call the News and Observer. I know everybody's so busy. I mean, I really do. But when you're in the car or you're ignoring your children, instead of like putting a picture of yourself cooking something fancy on Facebook, do that instead. Anyway, I don't want to see what you're cooking fancy on Facebook. I was just thinking, what the hell am I going to make tonight? I think I have one more box of powdered macaroni and cheese. So anyway, that's all. That's all I got. Now, if you want more fun behind the scenes, I'm going to put a plug in for my Become a Supporter in my Facebook business. November 1st on my calendar. Wondering what we say or do. You know, April, I think just going. The thing is at 11, but then I kind of thought, ooh, we could go to lunch after, right? Just have to be home in time for the bus. No, I have this Become a Supporter on my Facebook page. And I wish you would. It's a smaller group. I think we have about not quite 250 people. And I do 3 or 4 videos a week and just some different stuff. And we did a question and answer the other night. So anyway, if you have something you want me to talk about or you have questions, I'm trying to be more in tune to that group. It's $5 a month. And don't tell me you ain't got $5 a month. I mean, you steal it from your children's wallet. That's what I do. Anyway, I'm urging our PTA board today to follow. Laura and I think Amy James, who have noted in my post and highlighted her name, I would tell any parent anywhere in North Carolina to go to their principal or go to their school board and say, we want to talk about threat assessment. And when your school board tells you they've done a threat assessment, I can tell you they probably have not. Rutherford County has, Nash County has, Craven County has, Onslow, Carteret. I think those are the only ones that have been trained officially. Most people really don't know what a threat assessment is, so they say, yeah, we did one, but they did not. They did not. A threat assessment is getting a team together trained to know what to look for signs. So anyway, Wake County, interestingly enough, says they've done one. Wake County refuses to work with the Center for Safer Schools, which I sort of admire. And Wake County is the only county in the state that doesn't use PowerSchool, and PowerSchool is how our schools submit these 16 offenses and additional. So if you there's like one, unacceptable behavior, that doesn't have to be sent to the police. But for some reason, Wake County doesn't use PowerSchool, which takes a ton of time and energy for the rest of the state to try to transcribe their data into PowerSchool. But Wake County, is its own specimen. A nice, fancy specimen that I'm jealous of. But anyway. But no, if Wake County has not, if you ask Wake County if they had a threat assessment, I think they would say yes. My question would be then to say, who trained you? Who trained your staff on the threat assessment? And they need to list someone that is, maybe it's not Amy, there's 2 or 3 other people in the country, a forensic psychologist, but why would you not use the person in North Carolina? In North Carolina. I mean, hello. I mean, she's going to Los Angeles, but she ain't in Wake County. I mean, that's just dumb. Sorry. but utilize the sources and the people we have. And unfortunately, Kim Martin had a fantastic staff at the Center for Safer Schools. People she hired that couldn't deal with it anymore and left. Don't use PowerSchool for referrals. Those 17 points. Maybe you use PowerSchool to put your discipline in, right? Or that's what Donna Doherty told me. Is that wrong? Don't totally trust me on that. But that's not terribly important if it's right or wrong. It's just silly wrong. Kim Martin is the only one left. They've all left. But her. Why are they not still there? That's not true. There are a couple people there, I think, that have been there a while. But they can't talk to you. But they want to lose their job? No. I mean, I wouldn't want to lose my job either. We use it only for grades. Maybe, Rachel, I think other counties do use it for that. There's something you have to do to submit your discipline to the school system, to DPI. My hope is that Kim Martin would say, you know what, I enjoyed this job, but I'm going to step down. I'm going to do something different that maybe I can really use my strengths for. I don't think this has to be a bad thing. I don't think it has to be a bad thing, but I think it's necessary. I think if she stepped down in the next year, you would see a team come back together and really work to make North Carolina's children safer. And it's not going to be a command center in North Carolina. It's not going to be paying somebody $5 million for an app that's free through Sandy Hook. And they have a call center. Do you realize just to host an app in North Carolina would cost us $800,000 a year? Just to host the app. How much does it cost if you use Sandy Hook's app? Nothing. How much does all the training that Sandy Hook will come in and do in every single school system? Nothing. How much does the 24/7 center staffed with law enforcement, trained psychologists, threat managers? Nothing. How much is Miami-Dade school system using for their app and call center? Nothing. How much does Kim Martin want to use? She wants to start with $5 million. Then she wants to build the call center. Then she wants to hire people to work in there. Then she wants to pay Zetecki to run the whole thing. And when you ask her, why would you do that? She says, what would we do with the $5 million? If that's somebody you're comfortable with, then you go on about your bad self. You go on, get yourself a glass of wine, and you say, this doesn't have anything to do with me. But if you're a parent or a grandparent, or you even know a child that you like, then get off your ass and do something. Make a phone call. Call Kim Martin. Her phone number is right on the website. Now, of course, she's never returned my calls. And when I said, I've called you, why haven't you called me back? Well, they told me you could just talk to communications. That's Drew Elliott, the linchpin. She's not allowed to talk to me. So evidently, when I did talk to her over that pizza, that's why she's not allowed to talk to me. They're afraid what she's going to say. I'm confused with what PowerSchool has to do with threat assessment. We were just talking about PowerSchool and how if a school system has a sexual assault or something like that, the school system is mandated by law to report it to DPI so that at the end of the year, DPI can tell you exactly there's 16 offenses and how many of them happened in every school. Communicating threats is not one of them, which is important. So if a high school student communicates a threat, I'm going to blow up your school system by law does not have to, one, give it to law enforcement, and two, they don't have to tell you about it. Yeah, or Cameron just said, if you're a tax-paying human. Aren't we all tax-paying human? Though my accountant hates me today, but I did do whatever I said to do. It was as little as possible. Because I'm so busy doing this mess, I can't do anything else. That's why my children have to eat crap macaroni and cheese. Oh my God, if my husband comes home again and I'm in the same outfit, he's going to be like, I can't deal with him. Anyway, I'm just doing the best I can, and it matters. And y'all matter, and thank you for listening and hearing me out on my rant. And if you want to be part of my rival tribe, I promise you, we can make good things happen. I'm not going to run for superintendent. I'm not running for anything. I just want to be a mama and raise my children. But I'm going to do it from the side. Hope you'll join me. And if you want more excitement, come to become a supporter on Facebook. Because we have a video later just for supporters. No, it really is fun though. Oh God, I'm exhausted now. Is it 3:30? I think I gotta go. Love y'all. Goodbye.